Good morning. Thank you for joining our live webinar. Today's topic, interprovincial relocation of minor children. How do you deal with the issue of consent? I'll give everyone a few moments to join. Please note you are welcome to pose questions on the specific topic on the Advocate Mohammed Abduroaf Facebook page. I see someone said morning on our chat. Thank you. Good morning and thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, feel free to post it on the Advocate Mohammed Abduroaf Facebook page. Type in a question and I shall deal with it. Although the topic is interprovincial relocation of minor children, you are welcome to pose any questions regarding child custody, guardianship issues, international relocation, passport applications, and so on, all connected to the specific topic. The topic of interprovincial relocation of minor children, what am I referring to? Basically, if you live with your minor child in Cape Town, and we've used a picture of the Western Cape, and now you wish to relocate to Gauteng, and the other parent of the minor child lives in Cape Town, he or she would not have contact as normal. For example, every second weekend, maybe half the time, after school, whatever the case may be, because you will be now moving with a minor child or intend to move with a minor child to a different province. So that here we're referring to interprovincial relocation of a minor child. Obviously, the parent remaining in Cape Town in my scenario would obviously be limited in his or her rights to have care and contact, as would anybody if a child goes to a different location. So the issue is, what does the mother do or the father do if you wish to relocate and the other party does not want to consent or cooperate? Or the question is the consent of the other parent required for the specific relocation? And I'll quickly answer that question. Under certain circumstances, yes, and under certain circumstances, not necessary. The parent may relocate without the consent of the other parent who would be remaining behind. These are complicated issues because each family dynamic is different. Some fathers see a minor child once a month, once a year. Some parents, they do not really communicate with each other. Some parents are very involved in the minor child's life. They see the child every day or every second day, whatever the case may be. And because family law is so dynamic, there's no template answer for any specific family law scenario. That's very important to note, because of the differences between families, the dynamics, the children, the ages, the ages of the parents, the religion, the working situation, etc. So you would have to be very focused and determine what is best for this specific family. Do I apply a scenario of another family under the same circumstances, which would be hard to do because no circumstances are exactly the same? Or do I apply my mind properly and look at the positives and the negatives regarding the specific scenario, and how can I advise these specific parents or these people in front of me as to what is the best way to resolve the specific issue? So let us begin on this topic. If you have any questions, as I mentioned earlier on, please post it now on the Advocate Mohammed Abduroaf Facebook page. If you are watching this video later on, unfortunately, and I say unfortunately, I apologize for that, we will not be able to answer those questions later on. It needs to be done. It needs to be posed now, and I'll be able to see it and deal with it immediately. Okay, so let's deal with a simple scenario regarding interprovincial relocation of minor children, comparing it to a different scenario where we're dealing with inter-country relocation of minor children immigrating from South Africa. Now, if a minor child is in the care of a caregiver in South Africa, in whatever province, and that specific parent wants to relocate to a different country with a minor child, and the parent remaining behind is a co-guardian of the minor child, then his or her consent is required in terms of the Children's Act. So that is easy to answer, and many of our webinars dealt with that specific scenario where we're dealing with international relocation of minor children. When it comes to interprovincial relocation, it's a bit complicated. The Children's Act does not specifically stipulate that should you wish to relocate to a different province, to a different suburb, you need to require the consent of the other party. It does not stipulate that at all. And also, interprovincial relocation can be very tricky because the next province could be 10 kilometers away from your current home. And many people living in the same suburb, sometimes they live about 10 kilometers away from each other, depending upon how big the suburb is. So the law specifically does not deal with the issue concerning, or at least the Children's Act does not deal with the issue concerning interprovincial relocation. It deals with international relocation of minor children, whereby the consent of the other guardian is required. When it comes to interprovincial relocation of minor children, there are a few scenarios that applies. Firstly, should the parties have divorced? And in the divorce order, the parties entered into a parenting plan, and the parenting plan specifically stipulates that when it comes to the minor child leaving a specific magisterial jurisdiction or province or whatever the case may be, a metropolitan, then the consent of the other party should be obtained. So that's possible. It's stipulated in a court order. And should now the primary caregiver of the minor child, let's say for example it's a father in this specific scenario, he cares for the minor child and he now wants to move to a different province, let's say KwaZulu-Natal, and there's a court order stipulating that he requires the consent of the parent. If the other parent does not give the necessary consent, of course he cannot relocate. He'll have to take the matter to court, and the court will determine whether or not the relocation would be in the minor child's best interest or not. So let's deal with a scenario where the consent is required, it should be required, obtained, because we're dealing with a situation where a court order was granted stipulating that consent should be obtained. Then we're dealing with a different scenario. A scenario whereby the father and the mother are quite actively involved in the minor child's life, whereby the father has regular contact with the minor child, the mother has regular contact with the minor child, etc. And in my example, I'll use the example where the father has primary care of the minor child. The child primarily lives with the father. Okay, that's most probably how I should have started it in the first place. So the father cares for the minor child, the child is with the father Monday to Friday, every second weekend the child is with the mother, and half school holidays is shared equally. School holidays are shared equally, half-half. So that's fine, but the father is the one that deals with the day-to-day things regarding the minor child, like school, homework, assignments, dealing with the school teachers, etc. And the other parent sees the minor child maybe in the afternoons and on weekends. Now, the father in my scenario wants to relocate to another province. Let's say this is a few thousand kilometers away from Cape Town to KwaZulu-Natal because of work purposes, etc. Now, as I mentioned earlier on, the law, the Children's Act, does not specifically stipulate you require the consent. If you Google, type in consent, consent is nowhere mentioned regarding interprovincial relocation. It deals with consent regarding international, moving from one country to another country. That is what it stipulates. But we are still guided by the Children's Act, where it says on every matter concerning the child's best interest is of paramount importance, and the Constitution says exactly the same thing in a bit of a different way. So, if the parent decides to relocate, the law expects you, because it's an important decision regarding a minor child, to give due consideration to the rights of the other parent. And that's very important. And where do I find this type of law? I refer back to the Children's Act. You go back to Section 31 of the Children's Act. And Section 31 of the Children's Act is a very interesting section. And let me read it out for you. Major decisions involving a child. It says the following. Before a parent holding parental responsibility and right in respect of a child takes any decision contemplated in subparagraph B involving a child, the person must give due consideration to any views and wishes expressed by the child, bearing in mind the child's age, maturity, and stage of development. Okay, so that's fine. The section starts off by stipulating you need to listen to the child, give the child a voice to be heard. And what are those decisions? It is the following. Affecting contact between the child and the co-parent, co-holder of parental responsibilities and rights, obviously the other parent, in my example the mother, regarding the assignment of guardianship, etc. And then, more importantly, subsection 4, which is likely to significantly change or have an adverse effect on the child's living conditions, education, health, personal relation with the other parent or family members, or generally the child's well-being. So obviously, when we're dealing with a situation regarding a child moving from one province to another province, of course, it is a major decision regarding a child. So the child needs to be consulted, especially when it comes to the minor child not being able to see the other parent as often as he or she would usually do, changing of schools, a lot of other things plays a role. So that's very, very important. However, Section 31, subsection 2 goes further, and now it only deals with the other party, with the other parent's rights. It first deals with the rights of the child, and now we move to the rights of the other parent. It goes as follows. Before a person holding parental responsibilities and rights in respect of a child takes any decision contemplated in paragraph B, we dealt with those parts a moment ago, that person must give due consideration to any views and wishes expressed by any co-holder of parental responsibilities and rights in respect of the child. And then we go further, subsection B of that section. A decision referred to in paragraph A, the one I dealt with now, is any decision which is likely to change significantly or to have a significant adverse effect on the co-holder's exercise of parental responsibility and rights in respect of the child. Okay, so there we have it. Section 31 is what you must look at. Section 31 basically tells us, okay, consent is not necessarily required under these circumstances, but what is required is you have to consider the views of the child, the views of the other parent. You know, the impact this specific decision will have on the other parent is very, very important. Now, having said that, at the same time, if the parent will be remaining in my example in Cape Town, and I live in Cape Town, and that's why I mentioned earlier I'm making use of the picture of Cape Town, that specific parent does not believe it is in the minor child's best interest to relocate to a different province. Unfortunately, if he wants to stop that from happening, she, in my example, the mother, would have to approach a court and ask the court to intervene and order that the minor child and that parent, the father in this example, remain in Cape Town. So please note, this is a general legal advice. I'm not applying to your scenario. You cannot quote me on this because it's an educational video and each case is different, and that was my disclaimer earlier on. But in my specific scenario, this specific father, because he's a primary caregiver of the minor child, there is no court order in place. There is no court order in place, but there is this relationship where the mother sees the minor child every second weekend, half school holidays, Sundays after school, etc. But he's the one caring of the child. He does not require the mother's consent per se. So if the mother says, no, you must stay in Cape Town, you should not get a better job, you should not get a better school for the minor child, you should earn little money in Cape Town, you know, whatever, I'll pay you maintenance. And that is obviously her arguments. I'm trying to be creative here. And despite what she says, he is allowed to go because he's a primary caregiver and live in KwaZulu-Natal. She cannot protest. She cannot tell him how to live his life and how the child should be cared for and what circumstances the child should be raised because he's a primary caregiver. But if she believes that it will not be in the minor child's best interest to relocate, maybe because the schools are not that good, the child is rooted here, she has friends here, or families here, etc. And or she stipulates that, you know, it's the middle of the school year, I do not think it's a good idea for the minor child to relocate now, and I can care for the minor child in any event. And the father can go to KwaZulu-Natal and he can, you know, pursue his employment, his career, which he has a right to do. She will have to convince the court, and the court will have to be able to make a decision. The court will have to determine what is best for the minor child, to relocate to a different province with the father, or to remain here either with the father or to be cared for by the other parent. Or, unfortunately, the parent living in the parent living in Cape Town, the mother in this specific scenario cannot care for the minor child because she's busy working, she travels a lot, etc. More than likely, the court will make an order that the minor child can nonetheless relocate to KwaZulu-Natal. In my example, in your example, it might be totally different. So nonetheless, if you have any questions, I do not see any questions, you're welcome to pose it. But please remember, the court applies a principle of consultation, of considering the views of everyone. So a parent should never make any decisions unilaterally. Very important, do not do that. Consult, even if you do not have a relationship with the other parent. Perfectly fine. Speak to an attorney. consult with the attorney, ask the attorney to write a letter to the other party advising them that you intend to relocate to a different province and you would like the other parent to please consent to that, or come to the table and deal with the issue concerning how communication with the minor child should be going forward. For example, drafting a specialized parenting plan, dealing with a situation whereby the minor child will be coming down to Cape Town at least every 3 months, maybe to visit the mother in Cape Town, to have some type of contact with the mother, or alternatively, the mother is allowed to visit KwaZulu-Natal to have contact, Skype contact, Zoom, FaceTime, whatever the case may be, WhatsApp. So all these things can be incorporated in this new agreement which the parties may have. So there we have it. I hope we unpacked it in a very logical fashion. And when it comes to the issue concerning interprovincial relocation or moving from one suburb to another suburb, the court will obviously make a decision as to what is in the minor child's best interest under these circumstances. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you online very soon.